Which version of the Cordyceps infection is more dangerous? There are a couple significant differences between the way Cordyceps works in the live-action adaptation of The Last of Us versus the video game. From what we've seen so far, I could point out two primary differences. The first one being the spores versus tendrils, and the second one being the stages of infection. See, in the game, there was another way to get infected, and that was by breathing in spores. Some people, when infected with Cordyceps, rather than continue down the path of the stages of infected, would pass away, and from their bodies, Cordyceps would sprout and release airborne spores that, when inhaled, would infect the person. It's extremely infectious to the point where even a single breath puts you at extreme risk. So people, especially the ones that would travel outside of quarantine zones, would typically have a gas mask as part of their gear. But if that mask cracks or slips, you're done. And considering that infected often hang out in the area where there are spores, there's no guarantee that you're not going to have a mishap. Spores haven't been introduced in the show, at least not yet. I'm guessing because they didn't want the actors' faces to be covered up in a lot of the emotional scenes. So they've been replaced with tendrils. In the show, the infected that haven't managed to come across any people will typically go into a hibernation-like phase, where rather than just shambling around pointlessly, they lay on the ground and tendrils will sprout from their body deep underground, going up to a mile away from wherever they are. And those tendrils will sprout somewhere else and create a patch of Cordyceps. If they're touched or disturbed in any way, will summon the horde of infected that were connected through those tendrils, essentially operating like a tripwire. So between one side having spores and the other side having like an infected alarm system, which one's more dangerous? I think it depends on the situation you're in. I think with either of these, you're in a lot of danger if you're a traveler. With both, you might wind up getting surprised. With the spores, if you go underground or into an enclosed space like in a building, and you're not prepared with your gas mask ready or something happens to your gas mask, you're done. And with the tendrils, you could just be walking to where you're going and not even realize that you've summoned an army of infected and they're going to be in your location within minutes. But with the tendrils, I think there is one extra danger that you don't have with the spores. And that is, at least with the spores, unless you have Cordyceps already infecting the area, you're pretty safe. The spores aren't just going to pop up out of nowhere. But with the show, we've seen that even if your town is completely clear of infected, there's not much you can really do to stop tendrils from growing underground into an area that one of you might disturb. That's exactly what happened with Jackson. They were doing basic construction work, they accidentally touched some Cordyceps tendrils, and basically opened up the gates of hell. With the spores, at least you could be prepared. It's extremely dangerous, and if you're not prepared, you're screwed. But with a gas mask and proper planning, you can survive it. With the tendrils, it doesn't really seem like there's much that you can personally do to stop something from just growing out of the ground. I feel like because of that, it has the ability to take you really off guard. Also in the show, while stalkers are a new thing, they always existed in the game. So before the stalkers were introduced in season 2, I think that the show version was a little safer since they didn't have to deal with that extra type of infected. Now that they've been introduced, they're kind of on a level playing field. There are also infected that use spores as like a weapon. I'll make a separate video to talk about that, but it makes me feel like we will see spores make an appearance in the show. If not, then that's another thing that makes the show a little safer. But let me know what you think. Which version of Cordyceps, if you had to deal with, would you prefer to deal with?